And then, and if you can hear what contributors are on the line, so we'll make sure we don't miss you.
Good morning. This is Ebony Baylor with the National Urban League, and I'm a member of the policy team for the Black Women's Roundtable.
Thank you.
And this is Stacey Stewart. I'm President and CEO of the March Times.
Good morning, Rhonda Sharp, President and founder of Women's Institute for Science, Equity, and Race.
This is Leslie Baskerville, President, CEO, and Council of NAFIO, and a member of the Black Women's Roundtable Public Policy Network.
This is Tamika Ramsey, convener of Michigan BWR and owner of T. Ramsey and Associates.
Good morning, Rhonda Sharp, President and founder of Women's Institute for Science.
And thanks the team that's in the audience, and on the call. And we will, okay. All right. Good morning. My name is Melanie Campbell. I'm the President and CEO of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation and the National Convener of the Black Women's Roundtable. It is my honor and privilege to wear both of those hats. And today we are releasing our 6th annual Black Women's Roundtable State of Black Women in the U.S. and Key States report. This is our 6th year. And the theme this year is centering Black women and girls leadership and public policy agenda in a polarized political era. I'm going to turn the program over, the briefing over to Dr. Avis Jones Weaver, who is our illustrious editor-in-chief of the report, the annual report. She wears many hats, but she's our scholar in residence, right? And really has been a joy to work with on this annual report. This gives us a top line on the state of the status of Black women from various vantage points. And I'll turn it over to Avis, who would then call on different contributors. This is a media briefing, so she's going to go over the executive summary, and we're asking everyone to briefly, anything you'd like to add, do it briefly so that the reporters that are in the room and on the phone will have an opportunity to ask you direct questions. Is that okay as a format? Avis.
Wonderful. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining the call. I'm so excited to be here with the 6th release of our State of Black Women in America reports. And as Mel just mentioned, this is really a group effort that brings together Black woman brilliance, really, in a variety of areas of expertise. And so while I will touch a little bit on some of the key findings, particularly in the critical area where one of our contributors unfortunately is able to make it here today, I'm going to also sort of ask the actual authors to comment for just a few minutes on their pieces, and if there's anything that's like really looming that we missed, I'll sort of chime in with it. But I think we've got most of the major issues covered by those in the room and those on the phone. So with that started, I just want to start by sort of starting us off and by putting us into somewhat of a political context.
Alabama.
Good morning. So, you know, this year represents the 50th year since the first Black woman, Shirley Chisholm, was elected to Congress. And here we are 50 years later, and we now have 25 Black women in Congress, a wonderful achievement. 5 of those Black women are new and just came to Congress with this last 2018 midterm election. All of them are Democrats, and all but one is 45 or younger. Unlike most of the Congressional Black Caucus, none of these...
You are muted. You can mute or unmute yourself by pressing *6.
Okay, making sure you all can hear. So unlike most of the newly elected
You are unmuted.
Congressional Black Caucus members, none of this new class of Black women elected to Congress are actually representing majority Black districts. So they, in fact, are representing districts that don't look like themselves in any way. I think this is a very profound point, and that it shows that as Black women, we can be elected everywhere. There is no place that is off limits in terms of our leadership. Another sort of seminal point that happened in 2018 with regards to Black women's political participation, we for the first time had a very credible, a very powerful race for governor. In Georgia, Stacey Abrams garnered just under 2 million votes, lost the election by just 55,000 votes. And let me just say for a second, even though people are talking about Beto, he lost his election by 200,000 votes, okay? And so she came the closest of any of these Democrats who were running in red states. She was closer than Beto, she was closer to Andrew Gillum, and we also know that she was juxtaposed against the fox, basically, that was guarding the hen house in terms of running against the Secretary of State. And so this is a very powerful point in which we almost have our first ever Black woman governor, but we know that she certainly has a bright future ahead of her. We do now have 3 Black women, though, who serve in the position of lieutenant governor. That's in Illinois, that's in New Jersey, that's in Kentucky. We also are on the verge of having the first Black woman mayor of Chicago. They will join 7 other Black women who are mayors of some of the largest cities, or part of the 100 largest cities in America. With that, I'm going to pause. One of the things that we do that are congruent with elections is having exit pollings in various states. And so I'm going to ask that we hear a little bit from Holly Holliday around our exit polls that were related to the 2018 midterm elections.
Thank you, Avis. First of all, this was a very exciting year for so many reasons. Many of the reasons Avis has already named, but it was also an exciting year for the Black Women's Roundtable and our exit poll. I'm excited. This is one of our larger samplings that we've done. We surveyed over 1,800 women, so we had a really good sample size from states Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Ohio, Michigan, and newly added Mississippi. So it really gave us a really wide overview of women, in particular Black women, and particularly in the South. As you may know, we experienced the highest voter turnout in 50 years. Almost 118 million people voted in the midterm election, which is unprecedented. On the Hills 4 years ago, just to give you a sense of how dramatic that is, 4 years ago in the 2014 primary, we experienced the lowest voter turnout in 72 years. So we can tell that the energy is really high. And the thing that I want to definitely dispel is that Black voters continue to show up, and Black women in particular, in proportion to their share of the population. So that is a really important note. I know that many folks, there's been some reports that Black voters didn't show up this time, but that's just simply not true. The turnout was up, and the turnout was up amongst Black voters, and while we did not overperform, we definitely performed on par with our percent population. Consistently, for all the years that we've done this survey, we've consistently shown that Black voters, and particularly Black women, are responsibility voters. That has been fairly consistent, usually polling in the mid to high 70%. This year we had an anomaly, and that anomaly was Florida. Florida made the exception. And so in Florida, over 43% of Black women voted for the ballot initiative, said they came out to vote for ballot initiative, 18% for a particular candidate, and that's a new shift. And then the last two big points are we always look at issues, and issues is always what we see as one of the prime motivators for women voting. And overwhelmingly, at every age group, we saw them supporting those core safety net issues, protecting Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, as well as affordable health care. So I'll end there for now.
Thank you so much, Holly. Wonderful. Our report then went into looking at Black women in the economy, specifically delving down into our income inequality issues and issues related to the wealth gap. And as it relates to that, Jocelyn Fry, Senior Fellow with the Center for American Progress, along with her colleague there, Danielle Sullivan, contributed an amazing piece. And so I'm going to ask Jocelyn to please share a few highlights from that piece for us.
And can we do something? Just one quick logistics point. Folks on the phone, are you hearing us okay?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you.
All right, Jocelyn, thank you.
Thank you, Avis, and thank you, Melanie, for convening us and your leadership. Danielle Solomon, who couldn't be here with me today, unfortunately, and I wanted to focus on the economic status of Black women. What we know is that the current administration is fond of talking about this fabulous economy and saying how everybody should be happy, and unsurprisingly, perhaps to us, when you look beneath the surface, that economic narrative is not really as accurate as they would have people believe. It is certainly true that unemployment has declined, but we wanted to look deeper and look really at Black women's economic status and Black women's economic status vis-a-vis other workers. And what we saw is what we have seen for a long time, that when it comes to things like earnings, Black women, like other women of color, continue to be underpaid in comparison to their white counterparts. And that has been unchanged for a while. It is true across many different types of jobs. We're looking at high-wage jobs and low-wage jobs. And even though Black women have made progress, they are still less likely to be in high-wage jobs than their white female counterparts, and much more likely to be in lower-wage jobs. And the practical reality of that is that they also are less likely to have access to benefits. Paid family leave, paid sick leave, critical benefits that enable them to deal with the work and family responsibilities. And so we explored just the different facets of what drives women's economic status and really a persistent state of income inequality when compared to white women and white men, for that matter. But we also wanted to look more broadly because we know that our economic status is not just fueled by wages alone, but it's really a broader notion of what wealth looks like. And we often don't look at wealth. And when you look at wealth, just comparing white families to Black families, generally speaking, there's an enormous chasm, and that chasm is growing. Black families, as a general matter, are far less likely to have wealth, things like a home, other sorts of assets and savings in comparison to their white counterparts. And that is true when you look specifically at Black women. Black women who are single and haven't been to college are far less likely to have the same wealth as their white female counterparts. If you look at data concerning Black women who are married with college degrees, they actually have less wealth than white women who are married and don't have college degrees. And that gap is growing. So we wanted to look at what we consider to be sort of a double challenge here. Not only is it an earnings challenge, but it's also a wealth challenge. And so as we think about improving Black women's economic status, we have to think of strategies that are really trying to address both components of the problem. So it's not solely equal pay reform, that's really critically important. It's also strong work-family policies like paid family leave, but it's also tackling things like housing discrimination, where there are declining home ownership amongst Blacks, in particular, consumer financial protections, investment in thinking about new asset building alternatives. Like that's sort of a comprehensive approach to actually trying to address not only Black women's economic security, but their wealth gap over the long term. And that's really what we need to be looking at in terms of promoting economic prosperity for Black women.
Thank you so much. That is amazing, Dustin. A couple of points I just want to pull out before we go to the next one that I think were absolutely outstanding in your piece. You mentioned, for example, that over the course of a Black woman's career, like a 40-year career, due strictly to the wage gap, Black women stand to lose over nearly $950,000, specifically $946,000 in wages. So almost $1 million we lose over the course of our lifetime, due strictly to the wage gap. And another point that I believe was particularly telling was when we talk about this issue of wealth, the extent to which we lag behind white women actually increases as we age. So single Black women in their 40s with college degrees have 24% of the wealth of their white female counterparts. But by the time we reach the age of 60, we only have 2% of the wealth of our white counterparts. And so that gets into issues of retirement security, so it's really, really critical research. So thanks so much for your contribution.
Absolutely.
I made a mistake and skipped over one other political point, and I wanted to ask if Ebony Baylor could just chime in for maybe about a minute, really super quickly, and see if you can give us some top-line items about the Chicago race that is going on right now. That was your contribution was about this historic race that's happening in that city as we speak.
She's unmuting.
Ebony, are you
Beverly.
on?
She's unmuting.
Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Perfect. Can you spend about a minute to tell us about Chicago?
Yeah, most definitely. So as we know that, as Avis mentioned earlier, we're standing to make history in the city of Chicago. So Chicago is in a runoff election that's happening on April 2nd, and they have two contenders between Lori Lightfoot, who is a former federal prosecutor, and Tony Winkle, who is current chair of the Cook County Democratic Party. When you look at these two candidates, they're kind of uniquely different. When you look at Lori Lightfoot, she is a openly gay Black woman who has never been elected to office, even though she's been appointed to 2 positions under the Daley administration, under the Emmanuel administration, which really talked about police accountability. She stepped away from the commission and decided to run for mayor after the report came out after the Laquan McDonald shooting. Looking at Pret Winkle, who is Thai. She was an alderman for 20 years. And after being an alderwoman, she then transitioned over to being chair over the Democratic Party in Cook County, where under her leadership, they had a significant increase of people of color being elected for positions, being endorsed. And of those endorsed candidates, over 64 of those people actually got positions. So this is going to be strictly a race looking at turnout, and the Black community is going to have a strong tie to it. So, for example, when you look at the election results of Lightfoot, she only garnered 29% of the Black vote in the February 26th election, and she won 11 wards. A lot of her wards were inclusive. They were racially mixed. They were also very liberal. And in the north side of Chicago, in contrast to Periwinkle, who was really carried by 5 wards, with the majority of them being predominantly Black in the south side of Chicago. So it's going to be very interesting to see if Lightfoot goes on and she maintains her inclusive strategy and picks up some more Black votes, she could win. And if Periwinkle again starts to work her wards that she won, as well as picking up a few additional votes that are not that are inclusive but not necessarily Black, she could win. So this is really going to be a turnout election. They had a low turnout of 33% in the general, but just having 2 candidates and making history, there's anticipation there's going to be a higher turnout.
Okay.
So very interesting to see what's going to be done.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Moving on now to continue in the economic arena and basically workers' rights, I would say, arena. I'm going to ask that we now hear from Carol Dorner, who is going to talk about her contribution around paid family leave.
Thanks so much, Avis, and thanks, Melanie, once again for y'all pulling this report together and allowing us to really speak about the state of Black women in America. I wrote about the movement of 2 very important policies that really do cohere with the discussion about wealth and wage stability. And they are the Family Act.
Hold on.
Can you hear us?
Can you all hear us now? No, not you.
Now we can.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. Can you start me again?
Okay, thank you so much. This is Carol Joyner, and I thank Melanie and Avis in particular for once again doing the heavy lifting and pulling this report together that really does speak to the state of Black women in the United States. And I talked about 2 issues that are actually moving in Congress that also address the wealth gap and the economic stability of Black people in this country. So the Family Act, the Family and Medical Leave Act, is a bill that's moving through the Ways and Means Committee, and hopefully will move in Congress this year. And essentially, it is a law that allows the United States to join the rest of the world, particularly the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, which is the largest group of coordinated sort of economic discussions happening around the world. And so the United States does not provide paid family and medical leave, and the OECD recognizes that it is the only country that does not. In fact, around the world, the U.S. stands alone with Papua New Guinea as the only country that has no system for paid family leave. And the impact of that issue for all Americans, but particularly for Black women, is glaring. So the Family Act addresses that issue. And what it provides is 12 weeks of paid leave for reasons like welcoming a new baby, providing care for yourself, time off for yourself to recover from illness, and time off to care for a sick family member, and also to address family members that have military-related leaves. In this country, only 17% of public sector employers have any paid leave, offer paid leave to their workers. This is particularly harmful for Black women because we're underrepresented in the private sector workforce. In addition to that, people say, well, why not FMLA? And only 40% of the workforce is excluded from FMLA, particularly Black women, because we also tend to work in small businesses. Typically, Black women are single heads of household. 75% of us, some percentages say, we are single heads of household. And that means that we are also likely, if we need a paid leave time off, we're also more likely not to be able to take it. And we have to choose between having a baby and going back to work 2 weeks after the baby is born. The Family Act will address all of these issues. In addition to that, the report addresses paid sick days, which is the shorter period of time that's needed for people to care for themselves when they have a cold, or to pick up their child from school if the child is sick. We also are less likely to have access to that leave time as well. And so some of the wins in the states that we've seen on both paid family leave and paid sick days have been led by Black women, and the reason being is because both of those issues address what Black families need in terms of leave. They are being led by working women. They're being led by fathers who know that they need to take time off. And what we're seeing is in the states where we've won paid leave, fathers are more likely to take time off to care for their children. So we see paid leave and paid sick days as a critical issue for Black wealth and income stability. And we're hoping that folks will support us in passing the Family Act and the Healthy Families Act.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So we're going to ask that if everyone can move forward, limiting your responses to like maybe a minute, because
we have several reporters on the line,
right,
ladies,
and they're
so they can ask you questions.
Right.
Okay.
So we're just going to need to hit just the very, very top notes. With that said, Mr. Clay, I'm going to next go to Rhonda Von Sharp. If you could just hit the top notes on your piece around unionization and this particular challenge that Black women face at time of government shutdown.
Thank you. Good morning. So I think the biggest point about unionization is the notion that it alleviates wage inequality. So that may be true at the federal level for Black women who participate in unions. I did not see that show up in the data for local and state. It appears that Black women who belong to unions at the local level relative to the white male counterparts are at more of a disadvantage. So that's one. Two, in thinking about the Janus decision, where there is concern about the rate of unionization for Black women going down, because you no longer have to participate by paying your fair share. I think that how that's going to play out is going to depend on what local unions do and the occupations that Black women are in. And then finally, with respect to the government shutdown, the data show that about 27% of federal employees were Black women. And so when we take a look at that and think about the time that the shutdown occurred, so 35 days, you're looking at Black women needing to replace anywhere from roughly $2,900 to $4,600 in income. And the biggest problem of that is when you, again, thinking about where federal employees are living, a large percentage live in the Maryland area, which also has the highest rate, higher than the national average for home ownership, home pricing and rental rate, as well as utilities. So that makes it even more of a burden.
Thank you so much. That was Rhonda Sharp, President and founder of WISER, Women's Institute for Science, Equity, and Race. Thank you so much, Rhonda. Next, I'm going to ask that we hear from Tamika Ramsey. She's the convener of the Metro Detroit Black Women's Roundtable and owner of Ramsey & Associates. Could you talk just briefly about your piece around the importance of supporting entrepreneurs, not just with infusions of cash, but a broader sort of holistic resource allocation?
Hi, good morning. This is Tamika Ramsey with T. Ramsey & Associates. And my piece very heavily focused on Black women business owners. In 2016, minority-owned businesses contributed to close to $49 billion in local, state, and federal tax revenues. Excuse me. The number of Black women business ownership grew a stunning 164% between 2007 and 2018. However, during that same time frame, average revenue dropped from 84,000 to 66,000 in 2016. While non-minority businesses revenues rose from 181 to $212,000. Research showed that this was because Black women were less likely to receive loans than non-minority women, were less likely to receive the higher amounts of loans, were denied loans, were less likely to apply for loans from the fear of rejection, and more likely to have lower wealth levels when actually entering into their business. Higher unemployment rates, greater gaps in gender pay, being locked out of traditional jobs, hitting the glass ceiling, poor treatment, low quality education systems were the reason why a lot of Black women actually created their business, because they did this out of necessity and the need to survive, where other people were actually attempting to use their talents and growing their passion and things that they enjoyed doing. The question becomes, why are Black women more likely to have these issues and not growing their business when, starting in 2005, foundations started to pour money into their communities? And the answer is that psychological and educational barriers have been embedded in our communities, and no matter how much money is being poured into these communities, if proper support and assistance is not combined with those financial supports, Black women will not continue to grow, because they need those supports to help with their business. Basic accounting, basic marketing, these are the services that Black women need in addition to financial assistance in order to help and grow and sustain their business. Absolutely. We understand that Black women, when hire local, they keep more money circulating within their communities, and they revitalize distressed communities, which also happens to be their communities. And if we are asking Black women to continue to open businesses at the rate that they are, if they continue to hire local and invest money into their community, then people and foundations need to make sure that we are providing those non-financial supports in order to help these women also. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tamika. I appreciate that. We're going to turn our attention from wealth, in essence, to health. With that said, we'd love to hear from Stacey Stewart, President and CEO of the March of Dimes, and if you could share with us some top highlights from your brilliant piece around maternal mortality.
Yes, thank you so much, and it's really an honor to be here with you all, and congratulations on the fantastic report. At the March of Dimes, obviously we focused on the health of moms and babies, especially around issues of preterm birth, maternal mortality, and morbidity. We've obviously ramped up our focus on babies born addicted to or having been exposed to opioids and suffering from neonatal abstinence syndrome. One of the biggest issues that we obviously looked at for our report is around maternal deaths, maternal mortality, and morbidity. That's the number of women who die as a result of pregnancy and childbirth or come close to death based in what we call a near miss. Obviously, when we look at the issues of the health of moms and babies across the board in this country, by any standard, all women in this country do more poorly in terms of birth outcomes or maternal outcomes as compared to women and babies across the industrialized world. The U.S. has the worst outcomes with respect to mom and baby health as compared to any industrialized country. And the outcomes for Black women and Black babies are even worse. We did look at this issue of maternal mortality, especially for this report. And of course, we see in this country increasing rates of maternal mortality as compared to decreasing rates for other industrialized countries. And the issue for Black women is particularly disturbing. We have seen the highly publicized stories of Serena Williams and even Beyonce talking about even their own issues with respect to challenges postpartum. But the reality is that Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die as a result of pregnancy and childbirth. And those issues have nothing to do with Black women themselves. It has a lot to do with the failure of our health system and the systemic failures. We also did a report that showed that, for example, about 5 million women, about 35% of the counties in this country, lack even the basic access to obstetric care. There's no hospital that offers obstetric services. There's no OBGYN and no certified nurse midwife. So even if a woman has health insurance and is doing everything right, she still may not even have access to the kind of care that she needs to make sure that she's healthy and to make sure that her baby is healthy. We do know that Black women, because we often suffer from chronic health challenges even before pregnancy, that makes pregnancy and postpartum even more challenging, and those are issues that we can address with better access to health care and ensuring that not only we are covered with health insurance, but also have access to care by having better transportation systems and issues like that. There are just systemic inequities that exist in the system of healthcare in this country that make it even more challenging for Black women and for Black babies to achieve the kind of health outcomes that we ought to be able to achieve. That's why we're looking at some really innovative methods in states like Arkansas and Oregon and Texas and Wyoming, where options like telemedicine and ways in which there can be transportation reimbursement for women to get to prenatal care, subsidized housing close to regional perinatal centers, those kinds of things, what we think can be very innovative solutions. And in fact, we're monitoring states very closely to see what kinds of things in certain states can be scaled across this country. The last thing I'll just say is that there are some glimmers of hope. The end of last year, we were successful working with a lot of different organizations to pass the Preventing Maternal Death Act, which was introduced in a very bipartisan way, and we actually encourage more bipartisan solutions. This will go a long way to creating maternal mortality review committees in states, providing funding for those committees so we can actually collect better data, design better interventions. And I'm also pleased to say that last week I stood with Representative Robin Kelly from Chicago, and also Representative Sheila Jackson Lee and others, and even Senator Durbin, who introduced in the Senate, as well as Representative Robin Kelly in the House, the Mamas Act, which will be another step forward to helping to address this issue of maternal mortality and morbidity. So we are seeing some tremendous challenges in this country, but working together, we think we can make real progress, and we'll continue to do that, working with others at the March of Dimes. So thank you for having me today, and it's a pleasure for me to be able to address this issue.
Absolutely, thank you. Now, absolutely. So to be able to wrap this up quickly, I'm going to next call on first Dr. Leslie Baskerville, President and CEO of NAFIO, to talk about her piece in which she talks about the state of Black women presidents of HBCUs, so talking about our leadership within that realm, followed immediately by Patrice Lawrence, who of Felicia Davis. Okay, and Undocumented Black, who will talk about immigration and how the fact that immigration is in fact a Black issue. And then I'll ask Felicia Davis to chime in. She wrote a piece having to do with issues of everything from reparations to other issues that were critical to the rights of Black women. I think I do want to say we're not going to have time to touch on everything that this report is about, but I will let you know that we are definitely going to open up questions so you can ask about anything that's covered in the report. So first, Dr. Baskerville. And if you could,
thank you so much.
1 minute, one minute, ladies, so we can have the questions from the reporters.
Okay. Were you asking us to pause for a moment so you could receive a question?
No, we're saying, asking everyone to please limit your comments to 1 minute so that we'll have room for questions at the end. Thank you. Thank you, Leslie. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. DeWeaver, and thank you so very much, our fearless leader, for all that you're doing, Sister Campbell. I want to note that the things that have already been said about women and wealth and women in the economy, women's earning power, women's inability to attain loans on par with men, is experienced and shapes the service of women at the helm of HBCUs. We're excited, however, that today we've got 31 women serving at the helm of the 100 HBCUs, and these women are magnificent. They are richly diverse in experience and background and style. They come increasingly in the growth and high needs areas in the sciences, technology, engineering, mathematics, in the arts, and so forth. So we've got this richly diverse group. This 30% or 1/3 of sisters serving at the helm is up from a quarter just 10 years ago. And that's a tremendous growth given the slow growth of women and men attaining PhDs. And so when you look at what are some of the barriers to women, and Black women in particular, achieving a larger number of the presidencies, and we would expect that they would have in excess of 50%, because Black women have more than 50% of the PhDs being earned by African Americans, and they don't. But we note, for example, that in every field, at the undergraduate level, the graduate level, and the doctoral level, African Americans are lagging behind whites, and Black women are exceeding the levels attained by Black men. And so some of the things that we're doing to try and increase the numbers of women at the helm are mentoring programs, helping women to get fellowship and funding for attaining their doctorate degrees are always a barrier. We're also working with members of Congress and state legislatures on the issues already pointed out about the discrimination in lending for infrastructure and for capital financing projects and those types of things. But as we are in the 400th year of the American soil, we are excited by the women that we have. We had a big story about Bennett and Bennett's College losing its accreditation because of a lack of sustainable funding. But the other side of that story was not told, and that is that another sister president, Dr. Glenda Glover at Tennessee State University, who was also the president of the AKAs, put in $100,000 to get the Bennett College over its hump. And the AKAs, under Sister President Glenda Glover at Tennessee State, started a foundation to fund all of the HBCUs. And so great things are happening, particularly as we're increasing the numbers of African American women serving at the helm of HBCUs. Thank you so much for allowing us to participate in this tremendous conversation, and congratulations on your 6th year of publishing the report.
Thank you so much. So next we'll have Patrice Lawrence of Undocumented Black.
Thank you, and thank you so much for allowing Undocumented Black to contribute to this report. We're very happy to be here and to be a part of this. So a couple of the highlights from the report is that with the media attention that we've gotten on DACA, the knowledge that up to 30% of the population of the United States who are eligible for DACA are indeed Black. A lot of them did not apply previously, but with the introduction this year of HR 6, for instance, that is something that would benefit the Black population, and that would be young people under the age of about 38 years old who have spent most of their lives within the United States. In terms of removals from the United States, we continue to see an increase in the removals of Black immigrants in the United States at 5 times their population, 5 times their presence in the population. The 2018 numbers said that there was a 140% increase in removals of Africans in 2017 compared to the year before. What we noticed is that from the visa sanctions in 2017, there was a phenomenal increase in the countries that had visa sanctions placed on them in 2017. The 2018 numbers showed there was an increase in removals from people from Eritrea of 51%, from Sierra Leone of 80%, and of Guinea 149% increase from the year prior. We also saw an increase of a new set of people, which is people from Mauritanians, and our records indicate, based on the anecdotal evidence that we have and the cases that we've been following, that these are primarily only Black Mauritanians that are being deported from the United States. And we saw in regular numbers, in 2017, there were 8 deportations of Black Mauritanians, and in 2018, there were 98. So almost 100% increase. Our numbers have from USCIS and from ICE say that in 2016, there are no known deportations of Black Mauritanians. So what we continue to see in the Black community is a targeting of folks who are Black immigrants, who are lesser known, who are lesser talked about, and who are lesser understood to be undocumented in this country. Lastly, I'll mention that with 2017 and then 2018, the report and what we entered was that there continued to be a removal of legal protections, work permits, and stay of removal for folks who had temporary protected status or deferred enforced departure. There were 13 countries that had temporary protected status at the beginning of 2017, and by the end of 2019, 9 of those countries had lost their immigration status. Of those 9, 7 of those countries are Black majority countries. This includes over 70,000 people from Haiti, Guinea, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Sudan, South Sudan, and Somalia, with Liberia being hit twice since they both had temporary protected status removed, and then for another population who had been here longer, since 1991, and with a renewal of their deferred enforced departure in 2007 under George Bush, that was also removed. It would be remiss of me to not mention that as of today, we are 9 days away from a deferred enforced departure for Liberians totally expiring on March 31, 2019. This is an executive pardon. It's a presidential pardon. This is not something that comes from DHS. Therefore, this can be fixed very quickly, very easily, and immediately with a White House memorandum. We're asking folks to continue to call and to follow on DocuBlack on social media, and if you're so gracious, please call 213-335-2192. That's 213-335-2192, and you will be connected with the congressional leadership in the House and the Senate who have the power to move this along expediently. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just want to say that we have authors on the line who's prepared to answer questions, and in the room who are prepared to answer questions about their pieces. Since we're running out of time, we just want to acknowledge that. So, for example, we have Felicia Davis, who can discuss her piece on the Green New Deal, opportunity zones, and reparations. We have on the line the Honorable Sheila Tyson, who can talk about her piece on Black women in Alabama. We have in the room Jennifer Tucker, who can talk about the Black Women's Roundtable's public policy agenda. We have on the line Crystal Hyde, who can talk about her piece on Black women in STEM. I also wrote pieces on the retirement insecurity of Black women and more on HBCUs in terms of the shifting dynamics of the student body there. So there are other things that we can also talk about that's in the report: domestic violence and how that uniquely impacts Black women, as well as the new form of discrimination, digital discrimination. So we have all these issues that we don't have time to lay out to you, but we're more than happy to receive questions on any of those issues, as well as any of the issues that you did hear from the authors regarding today.
Thank you, Avis. And just because of time, I'm not going to go into one of the other additional items that is in the report. But we do have some information that I wrote that just tells you, well, we don't do this report just to set it on a shelf. It helps us inform our work. So we have a component in there that talks about what our priorities are for the Black Women's Roundtable for the rest of 2019 around organizing, empowerment, and policy priorities that you can see further in the report. So at this time, we're going to open the floor and thank everyone on the phone in the room. And I apologize for those of you all who weren't able to share your top lines. But this is not the end of this conversation. We have several other briefings that we'll be hosting within the next 90 days around certain segments of this report. So it's a living document. So we're going to open up the floor in the room. I know I see, open up the room first to see if any reporter have a question.
Hi, I'm Deborah Dyer with USA Today. You mentioned quickly about the political party. You mentioned that several of the new women in Congress, Black women in Congress, converted that were not predominantly Black. Can you speak to some of the factors that led to those women, and also with the shift, if you will, from how other Black women in those other districts that were predominantly Black? And if I could also about say, compare her race or her loss to O'Rourke's loss and that gap. Can you speak to that difference and whether you see her as at the top of the ticket, whoever's ticket for 2020?
Who wrote that piece?
Well, it was about the. Oh, that was actually Elsie's. But I could. What? You know, obviously, first have to say that, of course, this organization can't endorse anyone. However, you know, exactly, it's a nonpartisan organization. But I will say that it was very exciting to see Stacey Abrams' race and to see it so strategically implemented. I will say also that BWR was one of those organizations that was on the ground in Georgia, making sure that we maximize the Black vote. And I believe that to the extent that you saw her overperform, it was because the Black vote was very organized, the Black vote was very motivated. She, as a candidate, went to every county in Georgia. She did not focus only on the urban areas. She looked at the urban areas, she looked at the rural areas, and she was someone who people could see themselves in her. She was relatable. She was talking about real issues. She built credibility in that state. She wasn't someone that just shown up out of the blue. She's been there for years and she's been active. And so all of those things, I think, help to show why she overperformed. I think she has a major future ahead of her, no matter what she chooses to do.
And since I've known her since she was at Spelman, I feel like I have to have a little background on her. But someone asked me that question yesterday, and I said, well, let's think about this. She has a extensive legislative background. President Obama had an extensive state legislative background. He was in the Senate for 2 years, and then he became president of the United States twice. In my humble opinion, I think he did, you know, he didn't do all I wanted him to do, but he did a pretty doggone good job and got elected twice. And so I think what we have to do as women, especially as Black women, be able to own that we, it is our theme this year, it is our time. Absolutely. I'm not saying she's going to run or not run, but she's got just as much experience as anybody else when it comes to that. And surely she got a whole lot more experience than the current president of the United States. Exactly. And that's just facts, it's not partisan. I mean, that's Melanie Campbell's opinion, not the opinion of the Black Women's Roundtable. but that's my take on it.
Absolutely. I agree. The other half of your question, I'm sorry, about the representation in Congress. Actually, the new Black women elected aren't that different from other Black women who are in Congress. It is more likely that the Black women who are in the Congressional Black Caucus got there from non-majority minority districts than it is for their Black male counterparts. Black men are typically representing majority Black districts. Black women typically are not. They typically are representing more diverse districts. So it's just very interesting how Black women seem to be able to capture the needs of their community, no matter what that community is. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, you said exactly what I was going to say, just in terms of the fact that we're seeing that Black women are accepted across the board in their leadership, and I think we'll see more of that in 2020 and beyond. And I agree completely on what you said with Stacey. I think she's demonstrated that she has the ability to lead in whatever segment she decides to do that, whether it's her nonprofit or whether it's future elected offices.
Thank you. And we had, at least, I'm not sure who's still on, but we had a few reporters on the line. So we're going to open up, is it open? Open the line for the reporters that may have a question.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Barrington Salmon, Black Press USA. How are you all?
Wonderful. Good to hear your voice.
Thanks for doing this. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about, we have record numbers of Black women in Congress, and I've been listening to the issues that have been outlined, the challenges, the problems, and I'm wondering, is that enough to have these women in Congress, or is there an effort to filter this down to state and local levels so that there can be real substantive change in terms of Black women's condition?
I'm going to ask Holly, but I'm also going to ask Felicia if she's still on, from Clayton County, Georgia. Although she wrote about Green New Deal, was very active on the ground in Georgia. You have Tamika Ramsey, who was very active on the ground in Michigan, leading our campaigns around our Power to Sister Vote, who are on the ground making it happen. So Holly, and then Felicia is still online, and Tamika. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, first of all, I think what we saw in Congress is frankly just the tip of the spear, if you will, from what we saw across the country. Black women were elected to all kinds of historic firsts, from judges to city council to state legislators. So I think that we saw the Black woman wave, if you will, up and down the ticket, and I expect to see more of it in 2020. I'll let Tamika is still on the line.
Yeah. Is Felicia still there?
Felicia, yes. Felicia and Tamika are both on the line.
So ask Felicia. So Felicia?
Yes. I in here in Clayton County, which has been it's a strong predominantly Black county. However, every significant position in the county has been turned to African American leadership. And this is kind of a trend. If you look at Georgia becoming more purple than red, it is the Black community standing up. Here in Forest Park, where it was predominantly Black, 80%, we had not had Black leadership in the city ever. So now we have an African American female mayor, graduate of Spelman. We have our city manager is now a Black female. But more importantly, both of our state senators at the state legislative level are Black women. All of our representatives are Black women. We have district attorney, Black female, and going down the line, if you're looking at our county commission. So it's not that we have to run everything, but because we have mobilized and turned out, we have a couple of seats for others because we know how that feels. But it's also significant because we embrace the Latino community that is growing. We embrace the white community to make them comfortable. But this is the ripple that's going not only throughout the county and the state, but across the South. You are seeing Black women lead the transformation in our political arena. So as we look at who's qualified to lead, we have set forth a new standard, a new set of criteria to say what leadership looks like, and it looks like us.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me do this because I know we have other reporters on the line. And then if we come back, if someone wants to do a follow-up to that, because I also have Sheila Tyson, who's on the line from Alabama, and we know this Alabama story, so make sure you read that component in the report. Any other questions from media on the line? Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, this is Charlita Tavares in Columbus, Ohio. I'm a contributing writer for the Columbus-Dayton African American News Journal, and I just sent a question to Tanya. The question is, with respect to what's next, are there recommendations in the report?
Okay, that's Holly Holiday is saying something on your thing, but it's actually Holly. She's going to respond. Holly Holiday.
Sorry about the confusion. So what's next is a couple of things. First of all, we are going to be focused on continuing to elevate our agenda. That's number one. Number two, we're going to be focused on making sure that we get everyone participating in the census. That's number two. Number three, we're going to be moving folks to vote in 2020. Well, frankly, we're going to be moving folks to vote this year in Virginia, Louisiana, and a few municipal races across the country, where we also are seeing some historic women, like we talked about in Chicago, but also getting ready for 2020. And then finally, we already are thinking about redistricting. And all of that combined together, that complete total picture of civic participation, will definitely have an impact on Black women's leadership, and we plan to be right at the center of it.
Okay. One thing I want to add that's in my one of my pieces inside of the report, but we talk about what we're doing. The other thing that we're doing to leverage that our voices and our issues is this will be the fourth year that we will be doing our presidential questionnaire.
Yep.
And we've done this since 2008. Started out doing it in partnership with National Council of Negro Women. We will continue to do that, and we will release the results of that presidential questionnaire and develop. It helps us develop our voter guide, and it's nonpartisan. And we ask everybody who's viable candidate on Republican, Democrat, Independent to answer the questions, and helps us to develop that voter guide that we release prior to the primaries, November, December at the latest, but probably November is our goal, so that it helps folks that have some information to help them be informed voters, and it will addressing the issues that Black women have shared with us, that will share with us over the course of these next few months as well, that are important, and what we want from. We do an Essence poll we partner with Essence every year to release a poll that just came out in September, and then also our exit poll that Holly mentioned. So it helps us to be informed about what Black women say they want from the next president, current president, next president, Congress, and the like. Anyone else have a question on the line, reporters?
I have one more question. This is Barrington again. I was just wondering if you could give me a sense of how much of an impact the occupants of the White House and its policies have had on Black women. Has it been significant, or is it just something that just has continued?
Okay, you asked. I'm going to repeat the question because we have a couple of contributors that may want to respond to give you opportunity. I heard you say, Barrington, what this current president has done for impact Black women.
Yes.
I'm going to ask Jennifer Tucker, who's our senior policy advisor, who for the Black Women's Roundtable. She'd like to respond briefly. So Jennifer, if you had any comments.
Well, this president,
as well as Sheila Tyson, if she's still on the line from Alabama.
This president has not been kind to black women, that's for sure. And he's done everything in his power to tear us down, to make us look as if we don't know what we're doing. And I will point to his continuous attacks on two women in Congress, Representative Maxine Waters and Representative Frederica Wilson from Florida. Both of those women did not and do not deserve his a constant Twitter feed about them. And none of it is related to issues. It's all very related to what he thinks they look like, and it's baseless. And that kind of maligning of those two women go a long way to the credibility of all black women in the eyes of a lot of people.
Thank you, Jennifer. Sheila Tyson from Alabama, are you still on the line? If you wanted to respond did you hear the question, yes, Sheila?
Thank you.
Sheila, did you?
Yes, I did.
Okay, great.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And I appreciate letting me on the call. I totally agree with, he has not been kind to black women, and we can actually see the effect of that down here in the state of Alabama. With Stephen Moody, we are in Alabama, in Jefferson County, we just elected the largest group in the judicial system of black women in the history of the United States. And so now they have actually passed a bill that will any vacant seat, any retirement seat that come up in our judicial system will be moved to Mobile, and that's more of a Caucasian county, that where white people will have a better opportunity of getting in as a judge because of the amount of black women that have actually took the seat here in Jefferson County. So, and I think, in what he's doing to Maxine Waters and other women, it's really appalling. It's insulting to black women and the race of black people.
That's true. And Barrington, this is Avis. I just wanted to allude to a point that was made in our report just a few minutes ago by one of our contributors around particularly Rhonda Sharp, specifically her piece that talked about the impact of the shutdown on black women. And you have to understand that we are very economically fragile. We do not have wealth. In her piece, she mentioned that the typical American family only has $400 liquid that they can access. For black women, it's even less than that. So one could argue that, as she just mentioned a few minutes ago, if you're put behind anywhere from $2,000 to over $4,000 over the course of that, and you only had $400 in the bank that you could easily get to, I would beg to argue that there are probably a lot of black women who are still digging themselves out of that unnecessary hole that they were put into because of the government shutdown. The other piece is Melanie Campbell. And I don't know if Crystal High is on the line or not still, who wrote a component in the report around technology, but also Crystal very much tied into civic engagement as well. Crystal, I didn't know if you had any comments. I know one of the concerns we have about this administration, of course, is that this is not just about black women, but it's what it's doing to, as we prepare for 2020, not addressing the issues of the impact that technology is having on our democracy. And nothing has been done to deal with some of the things that had happened in 2016 when it came to people being manipulated online. So, Crystal, I don't know if you had any comments related to that.
Well, I mean, I think if you're talking about the impact of technology, we're seeing it work on both ways, right? This is the first time
we've ever had to deal with a president who deals with policy on Twitter, right? So I mean, there's a different kind of tone and that's going on right now. And I think the level of hostility that you see towards Black women is being extended to online spaces, right? So there are lots of issues with regard to kind of the tone and that dynamic that's happening on technology from a platform standpoint. You know, I think there are questions that are still unanswered or still being addressed with regard to how platforms need to be dealt with in a responsible way, because we can see the impact that they're having on technology. And certainly, you know, there have already been reports of continued disinformation campaigns taking place on social media. I think that there is greater visibility to the problems now. And so, you know, time will tell how much, you know, any of these major platforms, be it Facebook, Twitter, how much they're actively going to engage on pushing back. We haven't seen them, you know, take any kind of affirmative stances in trying to minimize some of the negative pushback that's being spewed online towards Black women. But I think that there is greater awareness right now, and there's at least room for conversation about how the technology piece is going to come into play over the next several months leading into the election. We can expect, I think, a continued uptick in rhetoric, lots of crazy tactics at play, but it's an open field. This is so much of uncharted territory for us right now. So, I mean, there are people, you know, like Shereen Mitchell is one. She is involved in a collective that's really focused on almost being like a media and technology watchdog in terms of how politics and tech are intersecting. So I think more people like that are going to just be sounding the alarm and creating space for us to have our eyes extra attuned to, you know, how all these pieces move together.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions from reporters? Hold on one second. Hello? Let me find out if there are any other questions from reporters.
Oh, hi, Melody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Hi, it's Donna Owens writing for Essence. How's everyone doing
Great.
today?
How you doing, Donna?
Hi, Donna. Very well. Thank you. I had a quick question, please. How many women authored today's report? I want to make certain that I give ample credit to everyone.
Answer that count. Avis is counting. We'll get that to you in 1 second. Thank you so much for joining us. One of the things I'd like to also say as we close out, Donna, is there going any other question beyond that before I?
No.
Okay.
No, thank you.
Okay.
No other questions.
And one last opportunity. Hold on 1 second. One last opportunity for reporters to ask questions. And then we had a couple more. Felicia, you wanted to say something, and then we're going to wrap this up?
24, but just real quickly, 24 contributors.
Go ahead, Felicia. David?
Just in the environmental arena, which I only touched on in the report, with talking about the Green New Deal, but this administration is seeking to dismantle the Clean Water Act. And so from Flint, Michigan, with that water problem, to Alabama, Sheila Tyson Auckland speaks to their water problem, to Georgia, where we still have sewer overflows. They're really moving, and that comment period is coming up. It closes out in April, and so we have an administration where Black women are positioned to let all Americans know what's happening, this dismantling support for ordinary people. So it's not just our disparity, but the impacts, anything that impacts us more. But we're looking at having a nation where the Clean Water Act will have been dismantled. And so these are the stories that we suffer from water in Flint with lead. We suffer from sewage and water bills that are, exploding in Alabama. And then our administration is moving to dismantle the protection. So I just want to say environment is on the agenda in a big way for the Black Women's Roundtable and Black women generally across this nation.
Thank you, Felicia.
And Sister Felicia, this is Leslie Bastow. I just want to add that as another unraveling is in healthcare. Someone asked about the impact on women. The Affordable Care Act, this administration is trying to roll back the Affordable Care Act. This administration's budget proposes to cut Early Start, Healthy Start, Head Start, child and nutrition programs. This administration is rolling back the regulations on sexual assault and sexual harassment, on equal educational opportunity so that women can attain equal educational opportunity in athletics and other fields where they've not had it. This administration is separating immigrants, women from their children. And so if you look at all of the things that the sisters have said on this line, then it is clear that the policies have been inimical to the interests of women in general, but most especially to the women who are the last, the least, the locked out, and the left behind, women of color, low-income women, first-generation women, and their children.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We have to close out, y'all. We have to close out. So we're over time. We're going to thank Roland Martin Unfiltered for covering us live on their platform. You can, for those who are tuning in still, you can also go to the National Coalition's website, and follow us on Black Women's Roundtable on Facebook, on Twitter. Follow us at NCBCP_BWR or Instagram at the National Coalition. We thank you all for tuning in. Share this information. You can go to our website at ncbcp.org to get a copy that you can download of the executive summary as well as the full report. And it is an awesome report. And tune in also on a regular basis to hear more about the work we'll be doing with our Racial, Economic, and Gender Justice Empowerment Project that we're launching this year, our Sister Power Women's Empowerment Initiative, as well as our Power with the Sister Vote nonpartisan campaigns. Thank you so very much, and we'll keep you informed and connect with us. And we appreciate you all for joining us, and thank all of the contributors on the line, in the phone, on the line. I tell you, I haven't had any sleep since our summer. On the line, in the room, and the reporters and staff who helped pull this together, and communication team and everyone for all the hard work. And thank you, and tune in again soon.
Thank you.
You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. Hey fam, want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered, the blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. Check out our audio podcast. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Press play. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.